कया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। वाञ्छाकल्प
Prabhuji, you got muted.
Mati, I'm unmute. It's showing me unmute.
Yeah, it's by accidentally it got muted. I could not unmute you. Now we can hear you.
Okay. So today we shall be continuing from text 13 onwards in the fourth chapter. I'll just quickly share the screen. I hope everyone can see the slide.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So today we shall be continuing from text 13 onwards, 13 to 18 from the fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So text 13 says, Tat sarvam na samachakshvam prishto yadiha kinchana manne tvam vishaye vacham snatam anyatra chandasad. Translation. We know that you are expert in the meaning of all subjects except some portions of the Vedas, and thus you can clearly explain the answers to all the questions we have just put to you. So, the difference between the Vedas and the Puranas is like the difference between the Brahmanas and Parivajika Acharyas. So, what is the Brahmana? Brahmana means a person who Brahma Janati iti Brahmana, who knows the Vedic text and the purpose or the import of the Vedas. That person is called Brahman. Brahma Janati. So one who knows the essence of the Vedas as Brahman, that person is called Brahman. But Parivajika Acharya is one who not only knows Brahman, but he knows Paramatma and Bhagavan as well. And that's not enough. He also is capable of presenting the Vedic knowledge according to time, place, and circumstances in a way that people can appreciate and practice in their lives. That is the meaning of Parivajaka Acharyas. So, a Parivajaka Acharya is the one who can correlate with people. So, similarly, Puranas are also something like that. The Puranas are giving us historical instance from the history how the Vedic knowledge was practiced, who practiced it, how they practiced it, and what result they got. Whereas, the Vedas, they simply give us theoretical knowledge. So Brahmanas are actually meant to administrative. They are supposed to teach people fruitive sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas. But the Parivajika Acharyas or learned preachers who are actually experienced in the Vedic wisdom are meant to disseminate transcendental knowledge to everyone. They're supposed to teach everyone how to practice the Vedic wisdom in the practical life. And there's no difference between the Vedic mantras and what is explained in the Puranas or Itihasas. Itihasas like Mahabharata and Ramayana, they are called Itihasa. So they're not the part of Purana, they are part of Itihasas. They are separate category itself. The 18 Puranas, then Mahabharata, Ramayana, and the Vedic mantras, they do not give some different knowledge. They exactly teach the same thing. That is devotion to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. That's the ultimate purpose of all the Vedic hymns. That's the ultimate purpose of all the narrations in the Puranas and Itihasas. But Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit. As in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it was pointed out by Vyasdev. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam. Nigama means the Vedic scriptures. All the Vedas together, they are called Nigama. So Nigama kalpataru. Nigama is compared with the wish-fulfilling tree. Ordinary tree gives some fruit. But kalpataru means a tree which can give anything that you ask for. So like in this world, if you go to a mango tree, and that too only during the mango season when the trees is filled with the mango fruits, and you ask for the mango, or you can pluck the mango, you can take the mango from the tree. But if you go even to the mango tree out of season, when there are no mangoes on the tree, you will not get any mangoes. What to speak of asking any other fruit. But kalpataru means a tree which can give you anything, not just fruit or food in terms of food. It can give you anything you desire. And the Vedic scriptures are considered like such a tree. Whatever you desire, everything is possible to be attained through the Vedic hymns. Therefore, the Vedas are called Kalpataru. Nigama Kalpataru, but the tree, maybe giving whatever you want, but the tree also has its fruit. And what to speak of the fruit which is fully ripened on the tree. Galitam phalam. Galita means ripened. So this Srimad Bhagavatam is regarded as the ripened fruit of the Kalpataru, Nigama Kalpataru, the Vedic scriptures, which are like, Kalpataru. So we can imagine the excellent fruit in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence in one way of that Kalpataru. And that is what is being narrated by Sutta Goswami. So the sages here are actually requesting Sutta Goswami, because you are expert in the meaning of all subjects, except some portion of the Vedas, because a Parivajika Acharya is expected to know everything which is required for perfecting one's life. Not everything from the Vedas. Like, say for example, in the Vedas, there are so many stutis of different demigods. Pavamana Stotra, for example. Pavamana Stotra is the glorification of Soma. Pavamana Soma. So Soma is moon god. So moon god is actually capable of relieving people from different kinds of sins, especially killing of children, or committing some adultery with unbefitting person. So a person who chants Pavamana Stotra and performs the rituals is freed from such sinful reactions. So Vedas are filled. Shri Shuktam, Pavamana Stotram. So many stotras are there in the Vedas. But a Parivajika Acharya is not expected to know all of that. He is expected to know the subject matter which is essential for perfecting one's life. Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, the practical application of that wisdom, how we can perfect our life, all the subject is known to a Parivajika Acharya. But he may not know some portion of the Vedas. Because Vedas mainly are divided into two categories, Pravritti and Nivritti. Pravritti means people who are interested in sense enjoyment. So there is some portion of the Vedas which is especially dedicated for sense gratification, promoting the sense gratification. Any form of sense enjoyment you want. So some people are expert in that. They can help you to perform certain rituals or the yajnas by which one gets the sense desirable, or whatever sense gratification person has desired, he can get fulfillment of that. The typical example of that we get is in Srimad Bhagavatam of King Pururava. King Pururava, he even worshipped Lord Vishnu through yajnas. In fact, Pururava Maharaj, he lived in Satyuga. In Satyuga, more or less everyone was on the platform of Paramahamsa. Paramahamsa means people were not interested in sense gratification. They were mainly interested in perfecting their lives. Even the kings, even ordinary people, citizens, everybody was very spiritual, and they were fully dedicated in worshipping Krishna and interested only in going back home, back to God. So practically everyone was more or less on the platform of Paramahamsa. So Pururava Maharaj lived towards the end of Satyuga. Oh, the description is there that because he became so much attached to Urvashi, in other words, he was so much attached to sex life, that he started using the Vedas for the purpose of fulfilling his sexual desires, to get Urvashi for his fulfillment of his desires. And therefore, he was the one who initiated the Vedic rituals or Vedic yajnas to be performed, especially for fulfillment of material desires. And he did attain, by the mercy of the Lord, he did attain the planet of Urvashi, where he could actually enjoy her for a very, very long time. So, one can actually fulfill all the desires, but Parivajaka Acharya may or may not be fully conversant with that karma kandiya portion of the Vedas. But whatever is required for perfecting one's life, he is fully conversant with. And the practical application of that also is conversant with. And a parivajika acharya or a self-realized devotee of the Lord is not like a parrot simply repeating the words like a parrot repetition. He speaks with realization. Realization means subject matter repeated in a way that audience or people can not only appreciate it, but are able to practice it in their lives. Like, Srila Prabhupada, he taught these principles of Krishna consciousness in such a simple way. There are so many, big philosophers, atheistic class of people, scientists, who would come to Srila Prabhupada. But Prabhupada would explain the principles of Krishna consciousness in such a simple way. And I never, before coming to this Krishna consciousness movement, I never ever heard such a simple explanation of how we can understand we are not this body, we are spirit soul. Prabhupada gives example, like, he said, this is my hand, this is my head, or this is my body. So, not I body, but my body. So, if body is mine, who am I? A wonderful thing to contemplate. So, this is how the Parivajaka Acharyas, or the self-realized devotees of the Lord, they are capable of teaching the Vedic principles or the teachings of the Vedas in a very practical and way that people can actually apply in their lives. Text 14 to 16. So text 14, Sutta Uvacha. Tvapare samannu prapte tritiye yuga paryaye jata parasharad yogi vasavyam kalaya hare sakadachit saraswatya upasprushya jalam shuchi vivikta eka asina udite ravimandale paravaragyasa rishi kalena vyakta ramhasa yugadharma vyati karma praptam bhuvi yuge yuge. Sutta Goswami said, when the second millennium overlapped the third, the great sage Vyasadeva was born to Parashar in the womb of Satyavati, the daughter of Vasu. Once upon a time, he, Vyasadeva, as the sun rose, took his morning ablution in the waters of Saraswati and sat alone to concentrate. The great sage Vyasadeva saw anomalies in the duties of millennium. This happens on the earth in the different ages due to unseen force of time. So here, one of the beautiful history is being initiated. The beautiful historical incidents about Vyasadev's, what inspiration he got to compile the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is one of the 18 Puranas, but how this was compiled, why it was compiled, what impelled Vyasadeva to actually compile this beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam is being initiated in this narration. So here it says, when the second millennium overlapped the third. So in general, Tritiye Yuga Paryaye. Tritiya means the third one. So in general, the Vaishnava Acharya explained, in general, the sequence of the yugas are Satyuga, then Dwapar Yuga, then Treta, and then Kali Yuga. But this time, when the yugas overlapped, means the second became third and third became the second. So the second millennium overlapped the third. That means the Treta Yuga came first and Dwapara came later. So this happened only during this Yuga cycle. General trend, according to the Vaishnava Acharyas, the general trend is Satyuga, then Dwapara Yuga, then Treta, and then Kali. But only this time, when this happens during the 28th Yuga cycle of the Manu, in the 7th Manvantara, that time Sage Vyasdev was born. So Sage Vyasdev was born practically toward the end of Dwapar Yuga, Yuga Sandhya. It says he was born during the Yuga Sandhya. Dwapare Samprapti Titi Yuga Paryai Jata Parashad Yogi Vasavyam Kalaya Hari. So Kalaya Hari, he was the plenary portion of the Lord Hari. In general, Vyasdev is considered a Shaktavesh avatar. That means a living entity plays the role of Vyasdev. But this Vyas is actually very powerful incarnation of Lord Narayan. That's what is being explained here. Kalaya Hari, he is the powerful plenary portion of Lord Hari. He's not Shaktavesh, he's not a Jiva, but he's a incarnation of Lord Hari. So he's Vishnu Tattva. Vyasdev in our current time is actually a Vishnu Tattva, a powerful incarnation of Lord Narayan. So he appeared. And he appeared in the womb of a daughter of a fisherman, Vasu. Vasu is a fisherman. So his daughter's name was Satyavati. She was known by the name Matsya Gandha because her body will give a stinking smell of fish. So she was known as Matsya Gandha. So when she was born, right from the birth of her, Satyavati, her body would be having the smell of a fish. So one time when she was, she was a fisherman's daughter, so she had the boat. Sometimes she would help people to cross the river. So one time she was, navigating the boat, and Sage Parashar, he happened to come to the bank of the river and he wanted to go across the river. So he sat in the boat, and practically there was only Parashar Muni and Satyavati, nobody else was in the boat. So when she was taking Parashar Muni across the river, that happened to be the most auspicious moment according to constellation. Because Parashar Muni is the knower of Jyotish Shastra. In fact, for modern times, he's regarded as the father of Jyotish Shastra. So whatever most of the knowledge in Kali Yuga people have about astrology is actually coming from Parashar Muni. There's one of the very famous book he's written, is called Brihat Parashar Hoda Shastra. So Parashar Muni could understand that this was a very auspicious moment, and then a child born at this moment, or rather a child conceived at this moment, would be the incarnation of the Lord. So he told Satyavati, whose name was Matsyagandha at that time, that I would discharge semen in you, and the child which will be born would be actually the incarnation of the Supreme Lord. But she said, I'm a virgin girl. Who will marry me? And Parashar Muni said, because he's a powerful sage, he said, your virginity will remain intact. How that can be possible? It is possible by the power of the great sages. Even demigods can do that, like we know from the example of Kunti Maharani. Kunti Maharani, she out of curiosity, chanted the mantra given by Durvasa Muni to invoke the presence of Lord Suryadev. And Suryadev appeared. And she said, just, I was testing the mantra. He said, well, my visit to any mortals cannot be in vain. She said, I don't want any boon. But she said, you don't want any boon, but my visit cannot go in vain. So, as a boon, I will give you a son. And she said, no, but I'm unmarried. How can that be possible? He said, don't worry, your virginity will remain intact. So demigods or the great sages, they can do it. So virginity remain intact means as if she never had any union. So though Satyavati, she had union with Parashar Muni and she delivered the child, while in between the two rivers, the bank of two rivers, she actually gave birth to the child. It was not only discharged semen, but immediately the child was also born. Therefore, because the child was born between the two banks of the river, in between the river, he's called Dvaipayana. And his name was Vyasadeva. So this is how Parashar Muni begot the son in Satyavati. That happened to be Vyasadeva. So it says one day Vyasadeva was sitting. He was sitting at after finishing his morning duties or morning ablutions. He was sitting on the bank of river Saraswati. So river Saraswati flows in the Badrika Ashram. It's in the area of Himalayas. Of course, Saraswati river has disappeared more or less. It's gone underground. There are places there's a place of Vyasadev's ashram in the Himalayas. You can see the Saraswati river going in the ground and disappearing. The river is flowing actually there. But at certain point, it reaches where it disappears in the ground. You can actually clearly see that, even if you go till this day. And the reason is because Vyasadeva, when he was sitting and compiling these scriptures, the roaring sound of river Saraswati was causing a lot of disturbance to Vyasadeva. So he cursed Saraswati Devi that you disappear in the ground. So at that place, Saraswati becomes underground. She becomes invisible. So she flows beneath the surface. She's not visible on the surface. And it is said that she actually merges with Ganga and Yamuna at Triveni Sangam, coming underground. So sage Vyas, he could understand, he could see the future, that in Kali Yuga, the people will not be very much interested in spirituality. So people will have no abilities because they don't have any interest. They won't have any ability to study the Vedas. So the age of Kali being dark, and as we already read that people in Kali Yuga would be having so many disadvantages. Manda, Sumanda, Matayo, Manda, Bhagya, Upadrata. They'll be unfortunate, misguided, lazy when it comes to spirituality. So Vyasadeva, knowing all these setbacks, he was contemplating. Because people in general in Kali Yuga are too much interested in subject matter which is connected to temporary body. And because of their ignorance, they are unable to evaluate the assets of life and be enlightened in spiritual knowledge. And The most interesting thing is people don't realize, that everything in this world is actually temporary and it will disappear. Everything that I have will actually be finished in due course of time. No matter what I have, everything will be finished. And one time, the forgetting instance. Anyway, so people don't realize that in this age of Kali, everything is actually uh, temporary. In this material world, everything is actually temporary. But people in Kali Yuga don't have ability to even contemplate or even understand the simple reality that everything that I have, everything that I possess is actually temporary and will be taken away in due course of time. And they don't have any interest in subject matter that is spiritual. In fact, in Kali Yuga, people are so much fond of, the pleasures related to body. Anything that gives pleasure to my body and senses, they welcome it. There is no consideration of right and wrong. They simply are interested in sense enjoyment. In Mahabharata, there is a beautiful instance where Arjun, he actually goes to the heavenly planets. In the same body, he goes to the heavenly planets before the battle of Kurukshetra. So when he's visiting heavenly planets, because Arjun was a very famous person. In general, people on the earth, they're not very famous. People actually feel mesmerized. Oh, this person has so many million of followers on the social media. But that fame is actually insignificant. Just imagine, for 4 years, our ex-president, Mr. Donald Trump, he was a very famous person, but now he's non-entity. So people, no matter how famous they may be, their fame does not reach to the heavenly planets. Nobody in the heavenly planets is really interested in knowing who is a great person on the earth, because for them, it's insignificant. As insignificant as, suppose, when you dig in your home or your backyard in the home, you may find millions of ants underneath the ground. And in that society of ants, there may be one ant which is very famous among those millions of ants. But does it really make any difference to me? Do I really care about, oh, this ant is so famous in the society of ants? I don't even know. I don't even care about it. Similarly, for people in heavenly planets, people living on the earth, they are like as insignificant as ants in their backyard. They don't care. They don't even really bother to know. But Arjun's fame had reached even to heavenly planets. People in heavenly planets, they knew Yudhishthira Maharaj, Arjun, and all the Pandavas. And when Arjun reached the heavenly planets, the most beautiful damsels of heavenly planets, Urvashi, she was very much attracted to Arjun. Now, in modern context, if we think, if a person comes from, say, visit in India, and some beautiful, girl or lady gets attracted to him here in, this country, and she proposes to him that you become my boyfriend, person will be, very much eager to. But Arjun, he rejected. He said, I'm sorry, you are like my grandmother, great grandmother, because one of our ancestors, Maharaj Pururava, he had you as his wife. So in that sense, you are actually worshipful grandmother for me. And Arushi said, oh, that is all on the earthly regions, that rules don't apply here. Just like they say, this is America. You don't have to worry about this. We can have wife and girlfriend relation. He said, no, I cannot. He said, I'm from Earth. I'm not a resident of this Swargaloka. I don't have green card or citizenship of Swargaloka. So I will be going back. He refused. In fact, when he was in the heavenly planet, nobody would have even known. When he got married to Subhadra, Draupadi was very upset with him. So, but when he went to Swargaloka, even if you would have had enjoyed with Urvashi, nobody on the earth would have even known it. But Arjuna, he refused. But in Kali Yuga, people are simply mesmerized. Little bit enjoyment or comfort for the body, they are willing to go to any extent. And when it comes to taking some austerity or tapasya for enlightenment in Krishna, in spiritual knowledge, they are not interested. So this all was known to Vyasdev. And therefore, Vyasdev was very contemplative. We go to text 17 and 18. Bhautikānām ca bhāvānām shakti risām ca tat kritam ashratadhanam nissattvan durmedhan risattayusham durbhagamscha janan viksham munir divyena chakshusham sarvavarnashramananam yad tadau hitam amogadhrik dadyo hitam amogadhrik. The great sage, who was fully equipped in knowledge, could see through his transcendental vision the deterioration of everything material due to the influence of age. He could see that the faithless people in general would be reduced in duration of life and would be impatient due to lack of goodness. Thus, he contemplated for the welfare of men in all statuses of orders of life. So, the sorry. The unmanifest force of time are so powerful that they reduce all matter to non-existence, practically nothing. And Vyasdev, because he is a transcendentalist, of course he's the incarnation of the Lord, but he has the transcendental vision. Therefore, he could see that people in Kali Yuga will be actually very unfortunate. As the astrologer can see the fate of a person in the future, or astronomer can foretell the solar or lunar eclipses. Similarly, those who are liberated souls, they can see through the scriptures and can foretell the future of all mankind. They can see this due to their spiritual vision. Actually, remember once Atmatattva was sharing about his experience. He said when he was living in Mayapur, that time a lot of devotees used to go to him because he's from South India, so naturally, being born and raised in a very traditional Orthodox South Indian family, he knows astrology and a lot of other sciences. So a lot of devotees from different parts of the world would approach him. And especially when they come to Mayapur, they would go to see Atma Prabhu. And they would ask him, can you see my hand? So oftentimes he would joke with devotees that, yeah, I can see your hand. So you look at the hand, he said, you know what? In another 20 years, you will grow old. You will become diseased in between. time to time, and then you will die. You look at the hand as if he's very carefully watching, and you say, you will grow old, you will become diseased, and you will die. And the devotees would be, so much disappointed, discouraged. Another time he was saying that some devotee approached him and said, can you tell me who I was in my past life? As if, knowing that really makes any difference. Just imagine, even if I know that I was a king in my past life, what difference does it really make? Suppose, somebody tells me I was the king of Jaipur and I made that, beautiful fort in Jaipur. So what? Now, if I want to enter in the fort, I have to buy a ticket to enter in the fort. Even if I was the king who made the Lal Killa or even Taj Mahal, now if I enter there, I have to pay money and buy a ticket to go in there. So what difference does it really make? He said, another time one devotee asked him, Prabhu, can you tell me who I was in my past life? He said, yes, you are actually a buffalo. You were sitting very nicely in a pond. Like buffaloes, they like to go inside the pond and stay in the pond, especially in the summertime. And some Vaishnava spitted on you, some water on you, and that's how you have become devotee in this life. So devotee didn't like that very much. So, but he would sometimes joke in that way with devotees. The whole idea is the transcendentalist. They are the greatest philanthropists. They are not interested in, making a good settlement in this material world for people in general. They are simply interested in doing the ultimate good to people. So Vyasdev also was very much interested in doing the ultimate good. So the transcendentalists like Vyasdev, they are naturally, affectionate, and they're always eager to render some welfare service to people that will uproot all their miseries permanently. And that way they are real friends of people in general, not the so-called public leaders, who are, in the name of making big promises for sense enjoyment. They simply are interested in collecting votes so that they can be in position or power and exploit people in general. So people like Vyasdev and the followers of Vyasdev, who follow in the footsteps of Vyasdev, they are the greatest philanthropists. So a devotee, especially a transcendentalist or devotee, bhakta, he is the real welfare worker. He is the greatest philanthropist in this world. So this is the sum and substance of these few verses that we discussed. We will stop here. If anyone has any questions, may ask now.